SlimeVR had one of the roughest launches of any modern VR product. Some of the first orders took over 2 years to finally start getting out to customers, and a lot of people still think it takes that long. It's also just really hard to comprehend how that could even happen in the first place. I decided to sit down and ask them everything slime related. They told me a bunch about the unfortunate string of delays, how their open source ecosystem has cultivated a wonderful community, and why they think the production of their upcoming butterfly trackers is gonna go a lot smoother. Just a quick note, this was filmed in November of 2025, so a little bit of stuff is outdated now. Let's take a second to meet the two people who sat down with me.
I'm Spazwan. I'm the community manager from SlimeVR, or one of the community managers, along with Cedrock. I mostly look after the Discord and the Reddit community, but I've been helping out in the behind the scenes with Slime for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I'm Smelty. I am SlimeVR's first and still current employee. I do anything from part community to manufacturer contacts to leading our support system, running some of our socials, doing some YouTube stuff here and there. It's a very big mixed bag of stuff.
So, SlimeVR's crowdfunding opened in 2021, but shipments didn't really start going out until sometime in 23. What happened there? Because that's not like an intent usually.
So with any crowdfunded program, like any crowdfunded thing, you start the crowdfunding to build up the funds to be able to produce the product in the first place. Unfortunately, we went through quite a few things in the meantime that made that particularly difficult, especially with funding and just logistics coordination of everything. I think the original company, I think I should start with the basics there, was started by Polymoria and Aaron back in Russia. They ended up moving from Russia to Estonia, where they started the project. And about a year in or so, the war broke out. So Estonia was like, hey, we're not going to extend your visa to stay here. Get out. So they were faced with the choice. The whole company was already kind of started over there. Some of the items like straps and stuff were already there. So they had to quickly think, what are we going to do? And they ended up moving to the Netherlands, where they met me, and we kind of moved from there. There's just a lot been going on. It was also like in the midst of the chip shortage, like the whole COVID system. So we just ran into a bunch of issues initially, just getting things out of the door. Part of it's, of course, we're all neurospicy, ADHD. So things are like, we'd never done this before. Nobody in SlimeVR had done anything of this scale. And the original estimate was to do about 100 sales. Like the expectation was from Aaron's side, like I'm talking on their behalf here. The whole idea was that it was a funny project they were doing that they were interested in at the time, and it was going to be roughly like 100 sales. And then it got funded within the first couple hours and just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And suddenly everything that was calculated out on paper, oh, we're going to make 100-ish sets and we're probably going to 3D print things, that just off the table, like that wiped it. Like you grab the tablecloth and it just got ripped from under the project, except nothing stayed standing up, you know? The whole glass tower that's supposed to stand collapsed. Because we just weren't prepared. We didn't have an office. Like the whole idea was to make those in like an Airbnb whilst they were here. Just put aside a table, ask some friends over, do it there. And then things just kept growing and growing and growing.
Like for the chip supply, which chips were not able to be gotten easily?
Yes, so that was the B&O chips, so like the motion sensors themselves. Those are made by Bosch, and then they're adapted by a company named Siva, who then applies their like magic to it. You've got the B&O 5.5, which is Bosch's official chip, and then the B&O 8.5 is Siva's version, their little black box, as you put it in the notes. That does all the fusion and makes it a generally good IMU. Problem is Bosch kind of didn't stop producing them, but it became very limited. And when they did become available again, they were only available in really, and I mean extremely large quantities that just weren't financially feasible for our company. We were one of their biggest buyers, but just the scale they wanted to push those to bring, because they wanted production to be back up, so they needed really big orders to just get things going, finances, the whole thing, which we were also dealing with. But that meant minimum order quantity was just bonkers numbers that we just couldn't. So we looked into another chip, like a different chip, which was I'm looking at my notes here. The ICM
Was it FSP or
20.
ICM?
The FSP was Siva's upcoming IMU that we got some trial versions of. That one just did not perform. It was really expensive and didn't perform well. We got some early product samples from like a new Siva IMU, but they just weren't good. They just did not live up to our standard. We compared it with the ICM 2948, which is like the predecessor to the IMU we're using now, but that just wasn't up to standard. That just did not perform well. So we had to swallow the really hard reality that we're going to have to wait because the market just doesn't have anything better in that regard.
At the time, the B&O chips, because of their magic firmware, basically were just the best, and swapping it out for an off-the-shelf Motion Fusion engine on our processors just did not compete with that at the time.
The problems with getting them weren't that other companies were buying them up or anything. It was just they wanted to sell so many that you could not feasibly.
It was a bit of a mixed bag in that regard. Of course, we had a lot of competition in the space because it was one of the better IMUs. But the main issue we were facing was that just the minimum order quantity at the time was just way too high. And for smaller quantities, the individual unit price, which is like $10, $15 per IMU-ish for B&Os, which is kind of expensive, was sitting at nearly double, which would have, we already were in the crowdfunding phase, so there was no budget to suddenly go, all right, we'll pay double, because no.
How do you, communicate this to a community without causing an uprising? Because I know people are really sensitive about crowdfunding stuff, and especially with VR, there's been so many things that are just scams.
I think you can probably, as community manager, step in on this one.
The early orders were absolute nightmares. The first batch of trackers went out way beyond what the scope of the project had originally estimated. Obviously due to all the shipment issues that we were just talking about, but just keeping everyone updated constantly. We do weekly updates in the server. So just keeping everyone on top of everything and just allowing people to cancel their order if they want, but also inform them of what's happening so people can follow along was really important to keeping people on board.
Yeah, just weekly updates. If anyone has any questions, make sure everyone's up to date. Want to cancel? That's fine. We've always had a pretty lenient refund policy and warranty policy in that regard. We will touch on that later, of course. But especially in the beginning, hey, if you don't trust it, you can cancel. That is perfectly fine. But if you don't, here's all the updates. We understand your frustration, but this is everything we're working through. Another fun example I think I can give for one of the slowdowns was straps. When we were very early on, we had straps that were delivered to Estonia because that's where the company was founded originally. Those straps had to be moved to the Netherlands by train, which meant they had to move through Poland. And we're not sure what happened, but they got stuck on a freight train in Poland for almost a full year. Which meant we had to order from our manufacturer, reorder those straps entirely, fund it ourselves pretty much, find room in our budget to do that. And it was a year later that they suddenly showed up beaten, battered. But usual, the boxes were beaten, battered, but the contents were fine, luckily. But that took almost a year, and that's just not something you can account for, and that's just stuff like that.
100,000 trackers just vanished. And no one can tell us where they went. So it's what do you do then? It's stuff like that that really just throws a wrench into the plans, and it halts everything as well, because you can't send any trackers out because you don't have straps. Then you have to order new straps, and it snowballs from there.
So do you two think you're still judged based on those shipping times today?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, we are.
Absolutely.
We still have.
We get people coming into the server following tutorials from 2021 saying, why does the server not run? And it's like our really, really old one. So news doesn't go away, and stuff like that just sticks around for such a long time.
Yeah, we have plenty of people who join like the community and they're like, hey, is it true that it takes 2 years to deliver? Which no, it does not. But I mean, for early batches, that's the news that stuck. That was like, that's what you heard in early reviews and from early people. And yeah, the initial like batch 1 and 2 did take considerably long for listed reasons and list of reasons that we'll get through. But yeah, it's misconceptions like that that just stick around, and it's really hard to get rid of them. We try and do our best to just show otherwise. Like, doing things and deeds speak a lot louder than words that we can say. So we've been trying our best to be as transparent as same as in the beginning. We still, several years later, do our weekly updates, which nowadays I collect information for the update from our internal team, and Spaz from our community puts it together into our weekly updates.
So a lot of other crowdfunding uses like Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Why CrowdSupply? Like, things are a little bit different with that, right?
Yes. So our situation with CrowdSupply is pretty unique, but I'll get to that in just a second. Because initially, CrowdSupply as a platform focuses a lot more on small creators that are just, hey, I made this really cool tech project. If you look on CrowdSupply, it's a lot of very nerdy, geeky cybersecurity. That's just what fit us best. That's what, at least the initial decision, that's what just worked best, because, hey, we're a little open source indie company. We made a tech product. This is where it fits. They offer a bunch of support things, so to speak, with a community behind it, full of tinkerers that are just in line with what you try to do. And it had just had a better reputation than Kickstarter does in a lot of cases, where Kickstarter is kind of known as the gamble your money away, and CrowdSupply has a very, if it doesn't get delivered, money back. Like, it's a lot more secure of a platform. Another reason we stuck with it is, so CrowdSupply is the daughter company of Mouser, and Mouser is like the world's biggest electronics, like individual parts supplier. I'm pretty sure it's like the biggest in the world at the moment.
I think so, yeah. If you've ever searched for an electronics part, they're basically the first thing that comes up every time on Google. I was just saying, partnering with them just allows us to get the channels into Mouser and allows us access to all of their like support and just channels of obtaining and sourcing parts that we normally might not be able to get very easily.
Another really big benefit from Mouser that it would be bad of me not to mention, but it's money. Mouser is an incredibly rich company, and the way it works with Kickstarter is you kickstart a product and the money starts gradually coming in. The way we're doing it with CrowdSupply and Mouser is we've set up a system where they place a PO, like a product order, with us. They're like, hey, we want to order X amount of sets from this, X amount of sets from that, and they will drop that cash up front. So the moment we get the money, ordering parts, ordering stuff off to the manufacturers, and the whole circus spins up and off we go. Which just wouldn't have been possible with Kickstarter, which this gives us as a company a lot of stability. Like, we have a lot of, Mouser is a really cool company to work with in that regard. We have some difficulties with CrowdSupply, as you know, but they do have transparent communication, and the fact that they can front money like that gives us the security that if they order, it will get produced. If people pre-order, it will get produced because it is paid for. So I think that's also a really big part for us to continue along, despite the sometimes difficulties we're having.
So then, if I'm not mistaken, CrowdSupply is based in the US, right?
Yes.
How has
Oregon, as
that
far as I know,
been working out recently with like all the tariffs and stuff going on here?
I want to cry. Oh my god, I'm pretty sure we just dropped like 600 grand in terms of tariffs on our latest 2 shipments. It's been a ride, because not only that we have to suddenly like from one, like you wake up in the morning and suddenly it's like, oh, tariffs. And you're like, what do we do? Because then you, as a company, sorry for rambling too fast. As a company, you have to suddenly approach your shipping company, which in our case is UPS. And it's like, UPS, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like, how are we gonna deal with this? Because they're the one having to file all the stuff and have customs brokers, and a lot of it went through them. And then they go initially, I don't know. And we're just like, oh shit. And then when we shipped it, initially we weren't charged tariffs at all. So we just sat there with the money like, are we going to get charged? And then like 3 months later, we get a letter, hey, you haven't paid the tariffs yet. And we're like, oh, you didn't ask. It's been very difficult, but it also came with, hey, we're going to need to raise the price of trackers. And it's not just 15% tariffs. It's also tariffs on top of tariffs. So it's more like 17.5%-ish. Is there a way we can minimize our price increase to not have to fully smack 17-20% on top? Like, there was a lot of figuring out, a lot of headaches and calls with CrowdSupply, and it pushed back the latest shipments by like a month plus, just figuring things out. Like, they were sitting in our warehouse waiting for UPS to figure their shit out, us to figure our shit out. Because these were already paid for products, so that's like, it's not like you're selling it fresh to the US. It was an already bought product. So how does that work? There's a lot that comes into play, and nobody, including our local postal system and UPS, was prepared for it in the sense. And it might just get cancelled anyways towards the end of the year. So
even after UPS worked out all their stuff, when it gets to the customs, there's a giant backlog of all these other people that need their stuff done. So it's getting shipped to a warehouse that's waiting for that warehouse to empty. So they were stuck in customs for 3 times longer than they normally would. Normally they take about a week or two. They went in there for nearly a month this time.
Yeah, so not only was it like a month delay for just shipping them, period, they were then stuck for like almost another month just in customs. And all you can do as a company is just twiddle your thumbs and wait, because there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of trackers just sitting there. I'd love to push them through personally and kick someone's ass, but that's not something I can feasibly do, you know? So that's just stuff you have to deal with. And like Spaz said earlier, it just throws a wrench in things because it's not something you can plan for.
It really upsets our international customers as well, because they don't live in America, but they have to deal with this now.
So because of your relationship with CrowdSupply, it all has to be shipped here first and then out to everyone else.
Yeah, it's an exclusivity thing. They offer us lower rates plus the upfronting of money. But that does give them exclusivity, and as a company, losing that would be quite catastrophic, I would say. So we are looking at options, but as of right now, it's still all going through CrowdSupply. For a while, we couldn't ship warranties to the United States. Like, our warranty system was just backing up with all stuff that needed to go to the United States because our local postal company just needed to figure out how to do it. That took them a month as well.
Sorry, yeah, warranties and stuff. As soon as de minimis got removed, where shipments under, I think it was $100 or $900, so
$800, I believe.
Like 800, right? Yeah.
As soon as small amounts got held up, the personnel just had a seizure, and just everyone was stopped shipping to America because no one knew what was going on. It was just such a cluster heck.
I think that's a good way to put it.
SlimeVR is like completely open source. Anyone can build trackers, sell trackers, make software. How do you think that's given you advantages over, say, a product that isn't open source?
A very big part is just our contributors. A lot of features in our software just wouldn't have happened for the interest of other people. It's kind of like you're a developer and you like this product and it gives you the freedom to do with it whatever you please. Quite literally so. You could literally go to our stuff, get the files for our official production stuff, like the CAD files, the PCB files, and make your own with the exact same technical stuff. But software-wise, you could just take it and make it your own. But instead, people tend to just, they tend to go, hey, I want this feature. and we'll go make it happen. It's like, we can do it, but if you want it now, do it. Have fun. And then usually people will, like if someone has the means to do it, they will. And then they'll just be like, hey, I made this feature. Here's a feature request. Like, here's a pull request. And we'll go through our standard testing and like our, release candidates. A lot of them just end up in our software and has made things absolutely fucking fantastic, if I may say so.
Well, yeah, we get contributions from people like Jabberwocky, who recently added Stay Aligned to our server. That basically, if you're sitting around like this, it removes drift, which is the main issue with our trackers. And it's getting stuff like that where someone sees something they want in the software or the hardware and they just add it is amazing. And because we have a very open license, they have to open source it as well. And it just allows this like arrangement where we can get stuff from the community and the community gets stuff from us at the same time. So it's a very open and a lovely relationship we have with the community, I think.
And like, yeah, the features that come out of it are like Stay Aligned is probably one of the best features any IMU-based tracker has right now.
I definitely feel like our software is way ahead of everyone else's. Whenever we come out with a feature, it's a joke internally that it'll come out on competitor softwares within a month, and it usually does.
Well, I mean, doesn't like even...
That's probably the biggest problem.
Sony Mocafi just natively supports Slime's server, doesn't it?
They actually came to us and asked us for help in implementing in their software, and we did provide a lot of information for them to do that natively. So that while their engineers did code it all, we did help them with that. So we're cool with competition. Like if you want to add stuff, do it.
Yeah, it's like Lucas is currently like one of our main developers. Lucas from the server is currently working on revamping the firmware tool, like the DIY firmware tool, which is being refactored in such a way that if you have a quote-unquote competing product that also uses our software, say, God, what are they called again? The little magnetic squares that you can lock together to charge as a stack?
Somatic?
Somatic?
Somatic, yes. They could just submit like a pretty much like JSON file, so to speak. I'm not sure if it is JSON, but like for just reference sakes. That literally just defines all the firmware features they use and just submit that to us, and it would show up as an option in our software. And you can just handle their firmware through our software from official sources like that, which is just, it makes it better for us, because for us in future products, it makes it easier for firmware handling, but it also improves it for literally everyone else. And in the case of Mocopi, like they said, they came to us, but in the long run, it just makes it better for quite literally everyone. So it's this continual building of features that have people's best interest in mind, and isn't designed, like we're not designing stuff to be exclusive to our like hardware sphere. Even if SlimeVR as a company, hardware-wise, were to go under at some point, the actual software will remain and probably will remain active, and someone will pick up the thread and make hardware for it or make something. Which I just think as a whole, it's a living ecosystem and it just keeps itself going. Even if we were to go hands off from the software, it would just keep going.
There is a lot of passionate people in the VR community. A lot of very smart people too.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's kind of giving like Ready Player One-ish vibes, where there's a lot of DIYing and there's just people hacking stuff together. That's how we started. Just, hey, I think this conceptually should work, so why don't we try it? And I love that, especially like early DIY slimes, when we opened up the documentations, like, hey, here's how you can DIY your own. You've got some very questionable looking trackers in Tic Tac boxes or duct tape together, where it looks like someone strapped themselves with C4 packages to their body. It looked really cursed, but it worked, and there's a certain magic to it that I've only ever seen in the VR space. A little bit into gaming space as a whole, but specifically the VR space has this magical mentality.
Has being open source like negatively impacted you in any way?
So negative is a really big word. I think one of the main things that was a really defining factor this year, or like the last year and a half or so, was defining our marketplace and our marketplace rules and trademark rules. Because there's just a couple sellers out there, as you are well aware of, who are very much abusing the freedom.
You know,
like I wouldn't say abusing. Oh no, I've not seen your YouTube channel at all. But they're just, I wouldn't say abusing, but they are taking advantage of the freedom that we're giving and not necessarily ripping off customers, because that's not something I want to stand behind those words directly. But they're not offering what could be offered. And I mean, as you've covered in your video, we try to uphold a certain standard, and we feel in some way responsible for what happens in the market. So we try to do as much as we can to at least offer a safe space for people to be able to buy aftermarket trackers. We have looked into how much it affects us in sales as a whole. Not super much. People do tend to still go for the official product. That was a bit of a head scratcher sometimes for us, because you can go into the DIY market and buy one right now and it will be there significantly faster. But they offer things that we don't, and we offer things that they don't, and people tend to weigh off the pros and cons, and most of them end up going with the main product regardless. So in that regard, it's a lovely substitute for those looking for something else. And you've got spin-off companies
demand for the official trackers is just always outstripping the supply. We never have them in stock. Every time we send a shipment that has extras, it sells out within a week.
Oh yeah. It also it's also a breeding ground for people to start up their own livelihoods. We know Gorbit, for example, if you've seen our marketplace, is a pretty big seller. That's just their job, as far as I know, for a large part. You've got Somatic, who's gone from, hey, we made SlimeVR compatible trackers, to, hey, this is kind of our own thing now using the same software, to they now have a team of multiple people, including proper customer support and community managers and social media presence, and all based off of the same starting project. And I don't think that's much of a negative, as much as that just kind of helps grow, because they also commit back stuff that they learn and we learn from them. So as much as that seemed like it would be a negative, it's actually been quite the net positive.
Typically, what changes between a prototype? What do you decide, hey, this is a problem, we need to fix it, why?
Well, that's
the initial prototypes were just arranging the board and finding a really good form factor and overall shape and design, and just feeling out what's good about that. And then later on, towards the later parts, we've learned this from the original trackers, but to manufacture a board, you can't just make a PCB and throw it at a manufacturer. They have a lot of requirements, and some boards will work a lot better with their machines than others. So refining and just nailing down the exact requirements and optimizing everything, getting the arrangements perfect. Most of the last 3 iterations have just been shuffling stuff around and trying different parts.
Another big one is antennas, because they're now using a dongle instead of wireless. A lot of revisions, in our office, you've got Cake, who's pretty active in our community too, who's just doing straight up antenna testing. How do wireless signals interfere if the antenna is placed this way or placed that way, or if the USB-C port, if we put a full shielded USB-C port on it, what does that do with the wireless signal? What happens if we do a half shield on it? There's a lot of subtle changes that make quite a dramatic impact on overall performance, ease of manufacturing, things like charging currents, because we can on board determine do you want to charge the battery at 1 amp or half an amp? What would extend the lifetime of the lifespan of a battery? Where do you draw the balance between it? Because you'd like it to charge fast, but it's also quite a small battery, and if we can make it last longer, in the long run, that would be really cool. So there's a lot of very small but pretty significant changes that are just tested between versions. Same with the form factor changes. Oh, that means the casing changes, because that is a thing. And how is the flexi part in the middle? How durable is it? How is it mounted? When you really stretch and pull. Shapes of Velcro. Do we do an indent? Where do we put the FCC certification stuff? Because it's a really small product, so where do you put that text?
even just that little bin logo where it's like, don't throw this in the bin, they have specific requirements for how big that has to be. So just silly little things like that are very important.
Countries have different certifications for like different stuff. Like the same thing, like wireless, you need one certification for here, or one for like Japan or wherever else it's being sold.
Yes. So generally speaking, the European, UK one, and most of the other world, you can self-certify, where you basically have the documentation needed, but you don't have to necessarily present it right away. Like if you ship it around, you can, and there's like a trust system to it. And if it's pulled into question, they can ask you, hey, show me those papers. Or when importing into a country, those papers can be requested, which happens. Like we've got plenty of customer emails who are like, hey, I live in obscure country number 13, and they're asking for this documentation. And we're like, there you go. There's a document. This is all the specifications. Here you go. The FCC is a bit more strict in that regard, where the FCC needs specific certification by a certified organization. Like you need to have it done by a company that is FCC certified to give out FCC certifications. What a lovely sentence to say. So we initially kind of maybe slightly foolishly assumed we were using an ESP32, which is a already FCC certified product. So if you implement that into a product, generally speaking, that's fine. You can use that FCC certification because you're not doing anything new radio wave wise. That's already all FCC tested. The problem we ran into is because they are worn on the body, like you wear your trackers all over your body, because they're that close, radio waves and regulations are a little bit different, which basically null and voided that FCC certification for us. I think it was shipment 3 that was held, where FCC went, nah, we're not doing this. And we ended up having to spend a bit over 20 grand to get it FCC certified. Mind you, we already had shipment 3 in our warehouse. It was already standing, packed and ready. So we went through the whole certification process, dropped the about 20 grand, and got our new FCC code and like that little text that says what it is. I'm pretty sure ours is like SVR-TR1 something. You can customize it, which is funny. I mean, I fucking hope so for $20,000. But what we ended up having to do is our slimes are packed in individual boxes, who are packed into outer boxes and then stacked on a pallet. We ended up having to take all the boxes off of the pallet, take all the boxes out of their outer boxes, slice open through the seals of every individual box, take out every individual tracker, plug in a USB cable to update newer firmware with like the new FCC approved like radio stuff, upload that on every individual tracker, where we made special little jigs that you could slide around your finger like a little hoop, like a little loop hook thing with a USB-C between your like index and middle finger, so you could easily just pop it in and pull back without having to grip a USB-C cable the whole time. I had to do that for every single tracker, as well as replace the sticker on the back, like the FCC sticker, to have the correct code on it. So we ended up having to take out every tracker from every box on the entire shipment, repack them, put new stickers on it, put it back in its boxes, and then finally ship it out. That took a hot minute, and we were not quite prepared for such a thing. Again, that just throws a wrench into things because you assume it's fine, and for the first couple shipments, it was, until it wasn't. And that's just one of those things where if you ask people, just remedying the issue,
fixing up the old one and not doing the new shipment, so that slows down the next shipment, and it starts to snowball very, very quickly.
Why did it take them till shipment 3 or 4 to decide they weren't a fan of what was going on?
Yeah, we actually got advice when we were designing the trackers that the chip would be fine. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus as to who told us that, but everyone we asked was
generally speaking, everyone we asked.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like that's one of the things where CrowdSupply as a resource, you get in touch with many creators. And we've been in touch with many creators, and general consensus was should be fine. And we couldn't find elsewhere that it wouldn't be fine. So you'd assume it'd be fine. But when you go through US Customs, it's like there's so much going through US Customs that they just kind of pick and choose what they pick apart and what it is. And it happened to be shipment 3 that they picked apart and was like, nah, we're shipping it back to you. This is not entering the United States. Yeah, another big thing, and I think that would be funny to bring up, is the production process itself. We started producing trackers ourselves in-house. That was the whole thing, right? And there's a lot that comes with it. Think assembly jigs, like jigs to just hold pieces in place whilst you're assembling. Think screwdrivers themselves. We've burned out so many off-the-shelf screwdrivers, like electric ones, that state that they should be able to do up to this many screws. They do not. We burned through many, like so many. Then the thing, like wrist fatigue, like the amount of RSI from just constantly holding an electric screwdriver, and just screw 1, screw 2, screw, you know, that hurt. So what we ended up doing was 3D printing brackets to hold the screwdriver, and then we took, you know, the straps from a slime tracker, you know, the actual strap. We looped like 2 of them together and just nailed it to the ceiling and made that attached to the screwdriver. So you had like a suspended screwdriver with the elastics of the strap. And for some screwdrivers that were heavier, just double up the straps. And that took away a lot of the wrist pain and made things very efficient. But we did end up getting to a point where production had such a large demand that we can't do this in-house. We need to find someone to produce them for us, preferably locally. That's a good thing to mention. Most of our stuff, like producing and packaging wise, is produced locally. Our manufacturer for our boxes is literally like 3 or 4 streets away from our office. And our manufacturer who like assembles all the parts together, like puts the PCBs in the cases, attaches the batteries, puts them in their boxes, and then ships them to us. They're located like an hour and a half drive from us. So that was quite important to us to keep that local as much as possible. Like things like injection molding, doing that locally would have just cost more than twice the amount that it does now and would have not been financially feasible. Same with like circuit boards. You have those made in China because otherwise it's just not financially feasible to do so. Especially at our scale, as much as we are a big scale production, we are not big scale production in the eyes of manufacturers like that. Like it's a drop in the bucket. So especially with like European, for example, PCB manufacturers, it would just cost an absolute fortune and a half to have it done in Europe. But where we can, we have it all done in Europe. Stickers, boxes, assembly itself, that's all done within a local vicinity of 1 to 2 hour drives.
So then when you're like prototyping stuff, obviously like the casing injection molding stuff, you need to make a new mold for every new case. How many prototypes do you actually make injection molds for before you get to like the final one that ships out? Because I know that gets expensive.
Yes, so that's actually pretty interesting. So what you want to do is prepare it as much as possible. Like have the case ready as much as possible before even getting your first mold. Because that's just going to save you a lot of money in the meantime. For like smaller changes, like changing like the diameter of a hole that a screw taps in, so like this screw is too tight, that is something you can have changed. Like if the mold already exists, they can just fill it back in with like welding and then machine it back out, or machine the hole bigger. That's stuff they can just do. And when you're going through the process of mold making, if you've got a proper manufacturer that knows what they're doing, they will give you many pointers and many different advice to make it as smooth as possible. That's a funny one you mention it, because recently, as you know, our latest one of our delays was caused by the manufacturer of the molds, because, you know, the mold opens, closes, and thousands upon thousands of times and gets injected with hot metal or hot plastic into the metal. One of them had cracked, which, unfortunate, except they didn't tell us until we placed an order that the mold was defective. And we're like, okay, why didn't you tell us when it happened? Question mark. What do you mean we have to now wait for you to fix the mold? We oh God. Again, that just throws a wrench in things. Right? Like the parts are ordered exactly when we need them.
on demand. Yeah.
Another one was like stickers. Like we order, like we include sticker sheets, like body part stickers and just the funny sticker sheet. I think that was the shipment before, but we just ordered the stickers and then didn't hear from them. And we're like, hey, we ordered stickers. We really need those right now. And they're like, oh yeah, those are in the process right now. The machine broke. Just on their end, the machine broke down, and that took them a while to get it fixed. And the in-house manufacturing for the plugs is another consideration. Do we make an injection mold for this? Because that is an injection moldable part. But that would have cost upfront like 8 to 12 grand for the mold, not to mention the actual plastic and all the stuff. And then you look at it, and the Prusa is a machine that's like $1,500, and 1 kilo of plastic will do 10,000 plugs for about $20. So in the end, we've done 100,000 plugs. That has cost us, including the machine, maybe $3,000, maybe.
And like for the most part,
price-wise, it just makes sense.
That's just a piece that gets thrown out anyways.
Well, I mean, it depends. If you keep it in trackers, I keep them in like it's supposed to be kept in if you don't use an extension. But the moment you plug in an extension, that piece just goes.
Interesting.
I see you side-eyeing. So the plug was created because we had a hardware issue early on where the USB-C cable fit perfectly into the extension port, which is not something you would catch in testing. That's just like a user does it once and you realize, oh shit, right? That's not supposed to fit. It goes in the square hole. And what happens is the shielding on the USB-C cable would bridge the ground and positive, and it would just straight up kill the IMU. So what we did was like, that might be killing trackers, but also static electricity might. So what we did is immediately halt production. We changed the PCB so it physically couldn't short out if you plug the cable in. So if you do that now on newer ones, you can do that as many times as you like. Don't, but you could. And it wouldn't kill it immediately. Another thing is the plug keeps dust out, it keeps static electricity out if that were to be a problem, and it prevents someone from accidentally plugging it anyways. And with those changes, we saw a drop in actual tracker, like defective trackers. And we're currently at around about 2%, slightly less than 2%. I think it was like at 1.8, 1.9 on the later shipments of failure rate on the actual trackers themselves, which the market norm for consumer hardware is about 2.5% failure rate. So we're doing pretty good in that regard. Early batches were worse, but we've rectified those. Those issues have been solved, and those warranties, which were 2 years, are now 3 years. So if you had an early batch, you have an extra year warranty. And if it is an actual hardware issue, even outside those 3 years, there's a good chance we'll still honor some sort of warranty for it or offer some sort of solution, because we do stand behind what we've created.
What has been like the biggest defect overall that you've seen when manufacturing? And then how do you deal with something like that when it's like, oh, this is affecting way more trackers than we thought?
That's a difficult question in general. Like I've got a little list, like I said, of the stuff that we ran into. Like I already mentioned, you've got the USB-C that fits into the extension port. For that one, you just halt production, fix it, and move on. And honor warranty for anyone affected by it later on. Like I said, we've got 2 years of warranty. For early batches, we extended that to 3. And most likely, even outside the 3, we will still honor some form of warranty or offer you some sort of solution to mitigate your problems. Because, yeah, that was our fault, and we stand behind the product, so we will, we will do what we can. The cases issue, we initially made the cases out of ABS plastic. And when we got them initially, we strength tested them, we stood on them, we pulled on them. I quite literally remember just grabbing the straps and grabbing the tracker, sticking my foot out, and just pulling at it, just pulling as hard as I could to try and snap it, not being able to. We threw it in a box down the stairs to test how durable, just dropping them, throwing them, anything you can imagine, stepping on them, stomping on them, just to see if they are durable enough, if the screws hold. And everything seemed fine. And we started shipping them, and it was quite literally just a little over a calendar year later that we started getting our report, cases broke. And we're like, Someone probably fucking drop kicked him into a wall, and another report, and they kept coming in, and we're like, oh shit, okay, there's definitely something going on. So we went to our warehouse, and I remember grabbing a case from the box that we have. Like, in our warehouse, we have the boxes. I remember grabbing a case, just grabbing it and pulling at it, and it just went snap. And I'm like, that's not good. That's not normal. So I grabbed one from an older prototype batch that we literally stomped on. Snap. And I'm like, oh shit. So one of our biggest like guesses was that the material just degraded. Like, some additive that they used to make it transparent or whatever they did, there's a good chance that would just slowly weaken the plastic over time, and it just became brittle. So what we did is immediately just halt and reordered cases, because the budget was like, we can move things around, we have to do this. And we reordered an entirely new batch of cases in polycarbonate, because that's not the most expensive thing in the world, luckily. So we went with polycarbonate, and those have been considerably durable, and those will actually like flex instead of snap. So those have been a lot stronger, and the actual failure rate on cases dropped to like a 0.1 or 0.2% right now. So that
negligible.
basically doesn't happen. That's super negligible. Yeah, if someone has an old batch and they want new cases, or they have snapped, send us a message. We'll send you new cases, a tutorial how to replace them. You'll get new cases, new screws. With the tutorial in the video, it's pretty easy. I'm just going to assume case broke in that spot. So
I think you're having
here's a new
some
case.
drift.
Yeah, I think I should probably. I mean, we've been here for well over an hour. So I should probably.
Come on, I thought
Yeah,
SlimeVR
Let me just
drifts
stand
in
up.
like 10 seconds, guys. Like, come on.
Straps. Early batches of straps were single stitch, where for some people, and that was quite surprisingly quite low of a percentage, but enough for us to care, where the stitching would come undone, where the Velcro, like the hook end meets the loop end. So we contacted our manufacturer, like, hey, what can we do? They're like, hey, we can double stitch it. So like double stitch over it so the original stitches can't come undone. And we can add a anti-slip backing to it, like the little wavy pattern. So we added those. That was not as big of an issue, but one that we wanted to solve and have solved. Again, if you have an early batch, you want those straps, like you have an issue with them, just email us, and we'll get that sorted. Just a whole new set will be your way, you know? We get to the pain point, I guess, which would be extension cables. That has been a journey. So, in all honesty, the cable type was not really meant for movement, but that's the thing that you learn over time. Failure rate is not as high as I was expecting when I looked back recently, but again, high enough that we have iterated. We're on currently V4, which definitely dropped failure rates on those, but it was still not enough. So when we had the opportunity, when we switched to Tracker V1.2 with the ICMs instead of the BNOs, that decreased the price enough per tracker that we were able to drop the price on the 5+0 and replace all hip extensions with full-size trackers, because when looking at statistics, the cable that would generally fail is the chest one. People get it snagged, people get it hooked on something, moved too much, twisted, laying on it. That was the one that was the biggest issue. And in sets moving forward, that one has been removed entirely. Like, that's just no longer a thing. For older sets, we will just keep replacing them. We include them with every warranty, regardless if the warranty was for cables or not. And we started offering through CrowdSupply upgrades for hips. Like, if you wanted to get rid of it and get a separate tracker, you can as well.
Official trackers went from BNO 85s to ICM 45686s. Was that as easy as just, oh, I can grab this IMU off this board, rip it out, put a new one in? Or does that also involve like a new board, a new casing, stuff like that?
Yeah, the board needed to be designed around the new type of chip, but it wasn't too much of a problem because the firmware already had the support for that chip in it. The main issue was that, but like I said earlier, the BNO had magic firmware in it that just made it just really good. So we had to make a fusion engine that would be able to compete with the BNO, or at least that was our benchmark. It had to be as good as the BNO or better, and we did a lot of tuning, and it's consistently better than the BNO now, or at least as good as.
People are grasping at any new IMU that comes out. Like they'll browse AliExpress and see BMI 160, and then they came out with the BMI 270, and the ICMs came out, and just we had this really big backlog of options to play around with. And whilst we were just going our merry way with the BNO 85 and just going with that, the people behind SlimeVR as a whole, community-wise, kept going, developing for other IMUs, for DIY. So that gave us, hey guys, like we could literally just go to the community, to one of the people who actively works on it, and be like, so what have you seen? What works well? Hey, say we wanted to switch, where do we go? Like, because BNO is a really good IMU. The fusion is really nice, but it has some bugs. And it's a bit of a black box, right? Like Spaz said, it's a bit of a black box in the sense that you can't do anything. You just get data out of it. You turn it on, it tells you I'm ready, and you just take the data it gives you. That's it. That's already fusion data. You're not getting anything else.
Most IMUs are designed for hundreds of different users, and we have a very specific use case. So if you look at the spec sheet of an IMU, it'll say it has all these angles per second and all this data, and it's really hard to tell what IMU will work well for VR until you try it. So our community, just using every type of IMU, really gave us a lot of data to work out which direction is the best way to go.
Say you have an IMU in a drone, like a drone needs to stabilize in a certain way. There's IMUs that are really good at doing that. But with like body tracking, there's a whole different, it moves in so many different dimensions, but even like different body parts, do they act different? And now that we have an ICM, like now that we're using these where we have our own fusion, we can fine tune it to exactly what we need, and potentially even fine tune it for specific body parts to even further refine what we're doing with it. Right, because we're working on Spinny V2. I don't know if you've seen the device we have. That's that big gyroscope that spins. We're working on a V2 that just has more torque, so we can basically motion capture someone, for example, assign a tracker loaded in that machine to that body part, and just perfectly replicate, like change parameters, but perfectly replicate and know what it should be doing. Because like we move it 10 degrees, it should move 10 degrees. If we move it in all sorts of directions, we should know what it does. And this way we can like raw data verify that what it's doing is actually what it's doing, and tune our fusion with different parameters to really fine tune. And that's where I was like, do different body parts, like does your chest, because most drift comes from the chest. Why is that? Why isn't it your legs turning? You know, why is it not another like why is that? So we're working on Spinny V2. That should be finished this or next week, I believe, at least design-wise, to really push forward IMU technology in that sense as well, with our own fusion, which of course will be pushed along to the community for anyone to do with what they please.
You're getting ready to launch butterflies and stuff. Like, crowdfunding for that starts what?
Muted.
I can see. Yeah,
I hate myself.
I just saw your mouth move and there was no sound coming out, but the face tracking kept doing its thing.
So how is, like, are those going to be sold alongside regular slimes? And if so, how is that going to, like, change how you have to do things to be able to keep stock and produce two separate products?
Right. No, as far as I know, this will just be the next version. So the current POs that we're doing will probably be the last of main, like, legacy slime, as we're calling it, because butterflies essentially are just 2.0s, right? They are the same technology down to its core, but different processor, same IMU, I think, but different processor, better fusion, smaller form factor, more comfortable, just better overall. So it would be replacing mainline slimes. We're reducing it to less SKUs, because right now you've got core set, extended core set, which has a real large overhead when it comes to production as well, makes things very difficult. So we're really tramming things down to a more approachable, because like we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot from manufacturing. So we will be scaling things down in that regard and just moving forward with a generally better, more comfortable, more robust, stronger product. No extensions, nothing like that. Because, I mean, they are smaller. They are smaller than extensions.
So then, how much smoother do you anticipate production and all that for butterflies going versus first runs of legacy slimes?
Definitely a lot smoother than they have been going. So the main thing about legacy slimes, like I said initially, we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We were young, quote unquote, young, naive, starting a company, and suddenly orders. Magnitudes more orders than expected. What do? We don't know which manufacturers for injection molding. We don't know which manufacturer for straps. That's all stuff we have now figured out. And now that we have a dedicated person for it as well, we can hone in on that a lot more. We have worked with CrowdSupply for a lot longer now. They know who we are. The trust is built up. We have a reputation with a bunch of manufacturers. So in that regard, we have more people, we have more connections, we have more knowledge, which should make things run a hell of a lot smoother. It's still going to be pre-orders. So it's still when they go on in December. Don't expect to immediately have them like we have them in stock. It's still going to be a pre-order then, but it should run considerably smoother. And because we're limiting SKUs, there's a lot less overhead with our manufacturer because they're producing a lot less variants of said product. So that just, as a whole, that should smooth things out considerably.
Stuff, even just like the mold cracking, we're planning to possibly get 2 molds for this next one, so we have a backup mold. The new IMU we've chosen has a lot more supply for it than the BNR. Even just
BNR
stuff
supply.
like the trackers themselves and the box being smaller makes logistics a lot bit easier. We can fit a lot more trackers onto a pallet.
Whilst BNOs in the beginning, we had the chip shortage going, they've never fully recovered. They've stayed quite decently expensive, and they've stayed reasonably hard to get with minimum order volumes that are still kind of on the higher end. So it was quite a breath of fresh air for us as a company to be like, oh, this part is available. Also, part shortages can be weird because we've had, even during prototyping of butterflies, where we just, something as basic as like a 1K resistor. We just pick one from their catalog. Here's like a 1K resistor, just a little micro part on the PCB, and we hit order, and they're just like, oh yeah, those are out of stock. And we're just like, just put a comparable different 1K resistor on it? What do you mean they're out of stock? And they're like, yeah, well, the manufacturer doesn't want to be responsible for anything, so you are tasked with, which makes sense, of course, but you are tasked with picking a new part. And then to come to find out that almost every brand that makes resistors that has 1K resistance, like 1000 ohm resistance, all of them are somehow out of stock with this supplier. And you're just like, what? Huh? Out of all the components that could be missing, why is it this one? This tiny but really crucial, but such a basic how? And yeah, I mean, that one hasn't specifically for production caused many issues, luckily. That was really just a B&O early on. But it happens. And manufacturers aren't the fastest to communicate about it either. So you kind of just have this back and forth of not in stock, what do we do?
So SlimeVR is like a really diverse community. You have these like crazy people doing all this smart people stuff, coding and whatever. And then you also have people who can like barely operate a computer, it seems sometimes. How do you effectively manage a community with such different like levels of knowledge?
It's a very unique. I've made a lot of infographics with pictures and stuff that really help with people that are just not familiar with how tech stuff works, that guide people through like how to turn the add-on on if Steam crashes and stuff like that. But it is a really, really big challenge, and our community is hugely helpful. A lot of the time, people will come into the thing and say, oh, my tracker doesn't do X or my tracker doesn't do Y, and you'll immediately get 3 or 4 people just jumping on to help them. It's all about helping each other. Like, we have such an amazing community. And that's really the backbone of how we help people. We get people that just don't know computers, and it's just, we have very patient, lovely people in our server that help out.
So you guys don't really do like a ton of marketing, but there's still a ton of demand for SlimeVR. A lot of that is because of word of mouth. Why do you think that lends itself so well to not even just Slime, but VR in general?
Like VR chat is a niche within a niche. Like VR isn't very popular. All of the people that are on VR chat are usually in a community group. if one person gets SlimeVR, they'll tell the rest of that community that they got SlimeVR, and they'll show them off, and then that someone from that community might go over. So the VR chat community in itself is word of mouth. Like everyone goes around and talks. I think it just spreads around like that. We actually do have a problem with a lot of the people advertising terrible SlimeVR trackers inside worlds. If you see it in a yeah, you know, if you see it advertised, it's probably not a good idea. But yeah, the word of mouth is just because the use cases for our trackers is a community thing. So people get them for social VR most of the time. Some people get them for Blade and Sorcery or whatever, or Dance Dash. But yeah, mostly it's VR chat. That's our primary audience, or Resonite, or the other Chillite VR, where you're already going and talking to other people. So people love showing off their stuff, and word gets around. If you make good trackers, people want to show them off.
Right. And it's not just word of mouth. It's not for a lack of us not advertising, because we have for a while tried various ways of advertising. We've ran Google ads, we've done VR Chat World ads, and I'm like really honest, it hasn't made as much of an impact as you think it would. Most sales are word of mouth. Like communities know communities, people know people. And when you look at like Google ad space, for example, VR searches are not very high. Not as high as you would think. We ran a couple months of like just Google ads specifically targeting, for example, Quest body tracking, because a lot of Questies will use slimes or equivalent because that just works the best, and you don't have to spend $1 bazillion on like base stations and trying to get that to work and swinging around the things, and but when we were looking at it, we were outperforming both Meta and Vive in that space for ads. But in terms of clicks, it was not adding anything. Like to our bottom line, it was minute and costing us more than it was gaining. VR Chat World ads are somewhat effective, I would say. Like they're not ineffective. It really comes down to where you place them, how you place them. Some worlds are kind of pricey, other worlds are reasonable. It really depends. It's a very free market. Some worlds will charge you $500 a month to place a poster. Yeah, and other worlds will do like $80. The median is about $150 to $200 a month for a poster. So when you see those ads from other tracker companies who are in every world under the sun, most of them having a median cost of about $200 a month. I don't know how. But clearly they're getting something out of it. We found that it does increase sales a little bit, but I find them personally as a VR user kind of appalling. I don't necessarily want to be in my face with an ad. So it really comes down to the world. The worlds we have picked were picked based on certain criteria, where a lot of them just have like a billboard outside spawn, or you spawn in the area and you quickly briefly through, see all the posters, move on. It's like a pre-roll ad instead of constant mid-roll ads. But then you've got like Popcorn Palace, which I personally was on our list to consider. But
they have exclusivity, don't they?
They do. But even then, we could probably talk things out if we tried. Of course, it's not a given, but like we haven't attempted because one, it's not a world I think we wanted to associate with as a company. It is down to basics a piracy world, which not one way or another, but I don't think that's something we necessarily wanted to associate with directly. And they already have the exclusivity, and that's not something we wanted to meddle with.
Demand is outstripping supply anyway, so like we don't need to advertise. The only issue is like the bad actors that we want to kind of try and get customers that want SlimeVR or don't even know SlimeVR to buy proper ones, even if it's from our marketplace.
And that's the bulk of the interview. Huge thanks to both Smelty and Spazwan for sitting down with me. We talked for like 2 or 3 hours after the interview too. The Steam frame had just been announced literally the day before we recorded this. And then I was also using FluxPose in a long session for the first time, so there were some questions about that too. It was really fun sitting down and talking with them, and I'm really sorry it took me so long to do anything with it. Also, if you've never looked through Slime's update channels, it's actually kind of fun to do. There's a lot of really cool behind-the-scenes pictures and videos there. I didn't know that original Slimes were ever made in clear. From what I can gather, it was just like a sample from the injection mold company, but it reminds me a lot of how like Meta or Valve have their internal prototypes that are in clear. Such a cool color, and it's kind of a shame that you can't buy them like that. I'd like to take a second to thank my channel members, with an extra big thanks to Sync for the Win, Rikachu EX, Yobo's Extras, Senko Loaf, and Easy Red. If you want to support the channel past just subscribing, becoming a member is a great way. All members get to see new videos a little bit earlier than everyone else, and Tier 2 and above members get some exclusive videos.